Hey, welcome back to That'll Do Garage. Thanks for joining me. We got a fun project today. We're going to be patching the floor of the Super Duty pickup bed. Let me show you where we're at. Well, this is the culprit right here. Previous owner had a fifth wheel hitch up in here, and they had some hardware bolted to the frame and everything, so they wanted to keep that when they sold the truck, and that left us this awesome hole to deal with. Good news is, I found this panel on, I think it was lmctruck.com. Its beautiful color is a weld-through primer. I'll tell you more about that later. But we're just going to cut that to size and weld it in. Well, the beautiful thing about this panel is it perfectly matches the corrugations of the floor, so it should be really nice finished patch when we're done. But before we do that, I want to show you what tools we're going to be using. Now, these are simple tools, and it's important to point out that this is all easily obtainable stuff, not too expensive, you know, available locally. So first thing obviously is our patch panel, tape measure, framing square just to help us draw straight lines. We've got a grinder here with a cutoff wheel and also grinding wheel. We just have to keep all the paint out of the weld, otherwise you can get contamination. So that's what this is about too. This came with the welder and a little pounder to keep everything flat. Let's see what, oh yeah, so the welder. Sometimes people can be intimidated by this and not know where to start and think, I don't know how to work one of those. And it's actually quite simple. This is an off-the-shelf welder from Home Depot. Came in like a DIY kit with you know, this thing and a mask that kind of sucked and some gloves and wire. So you can really just buy that thing and you have everything you need. This is 110 volts, so it plugs into a standard house outlet. And really all you have is, you know, control the amount of electricity and control the speed that the wire comes out. And that's really trial and error, right? You just kind of mess around with that and you find the perfect set of configuration for whatever you're doing. So I'll show you that when we get there, but these are some gloves I picked up just because they're a little nicer. Also Home Depot. Now this is called a dimming welder's helmet, and I think this got this from Harbor Freight. What this thing does here is a solar panel, charges up a battery, and then this is a sensor, and here. And when it detects the weld flash, this thing switches from kind of see-through like sunglasses to actually really dark like a welding helmet. So that means you can, you know, position your parts and see through here just fine, and then as soon as you hit the arc, it switches over to protect your eyes. So I highly recommend one of those. This is pretty inexpensive too, maybe in the neighborhood of 40-50 bucks. So all in all, you know, we got a few $100s here, but everything you hear here is really a general tool, and you'll use it again. I use that thing several times a year, and you know, I don't really anticipate needing it that much, but I find lots of applications for it, just like this. So in terms of preparation work, first thing you need to do is disconnect the batteries under the hood. You want to isolate those electronics and all your modules and everything from the amperage that thing is going to introduce. So you just want to protect those. Already did that. Next thing we're going to do is cut our patch to length. I'm just going to make it a simple square, and then I'm going to lay it over this thing, trace the outline, cut it out, clean the metal around the edge to keep the weld really pure with no contamination, and then we're going to weld our patch in. And then after that, you know, the weld will be up high and it'll look kind of ugly. We'll grind it down flat to match the surface, and then if you see any holes or depressions, we'll weld those in again and grind it down again, and we'll just keep doing that until we have more or less a perfect, you know, patch surface. I am going to do like a roll-in or a spray-in bed liner here, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but that's the idea. We do have a couple options for this patch here. The first one is set it on top just like it is, you know, and weld it in. That would be okay, but the thing I'm a little worried about here is creating an edge right here. I don't want to be trying to slide something into the truck bed and have it hit an edge. You know, that would be frustrating. Another option would be to put it underneath the bed and weld on top, but I also don't want to see all of that randomness. So what I'm actually going to do is lay it just like that. I'm going to trace around the edges and I'm going to cut out the bed so that I can lower this in to be the same surface as the bed floor. And then theoretically, if we get our welds in good shape, you know, this should be almost invisible once you put the bed liner in. Got a little overzealous here. Nothing we can't fill in with the welder later. So now we're going to go around the edge and just grind off the paint. You got to keep that out of the weld because it can produce nasty contamination. This actually looks like, I don't know, like peeling off or something. Anyway, so we'll do that. We'll clean up the edge and then we'll put that thing in the hole and see how close we are. Might have to grind off a little bit more or something, but cooking right along. So I mentioned earlier this has a weld-through primer, and that's exactly what it sounds like. I don't have to remove this because it is made specifically so that it won't contaminate a weld. So I can leave that just like it is. Let's lay it in here, make sure it fits, and then we'll put a couple tack welds on it and hold it. Okay, to get the welder hooked up, I'm going to start by attaching my ground. Hoping this bed bolt is good enough. We'll find out. Now, for my welder, I'm going to try to turn the power down really low first. So I'm going to set everything to low and slow and work our way up. So I don't know, we'll start at like 3 out of 10 here. And you can kind of think of this as like the supply and this ground is the return. And we produce heat at the weld bead by electricity jumping over that gap. So we need to control how much electricity we're using to melt the metal or to heat up the metal, and we also need to control how fast the wire is coming out of here. And now this wire is designed just for a welder like this, so you don't have to have a cylinder of gas on the back. What happens is the welder will produce a little bit, if you have a cylinder of gas, the welder will produce a small bubble right here where my finger is, and that pushes the air away from the metal. So then when it's melted and coming back together, it doesn't have contaminants in it. But that's a bit complicated and expensive and maybe unnecessary for DIY home use. So these use a different kind of wire that actually does the same thing, but it's embedded in the wire. So you'll need to get the right kind of wire for the right kind of welder. So as I said, we're going to creep up to this, right? I'm going to hold it in place. I'm going to try to tack weld it, and we'll see if I don't have enough heat, I won't get the penetration down into the metal. It won't melt it all the way through. It's like I won't have enough power, and then it'll be kind of spluttering up on top. You'll see that. Same thing if I have the speed wrong. If I'm trying to shove too much wire in or not enough wire, it'll be spluttering and not working. So this will be sort of a play with it process. We'll get it started and make some adjustments and just see how it comes out. hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of tacking it in a few different spots, and what happens when, like, if the power's too high, it just burns it away. One of my tacks just let go. Anyway, making progress. This is the start of a good weld, and I think I got one to start over here too that's decent. They look pretty crappy right now, but as we get it tacked in and fill in the gap, it will start to look much better. Progress. Definitely welded all the way. And I did the major grinding on this side and this side. Like I said, it's not pretty, but it'll work, especially the bed liner. I did find one hole here I'll have to touch up, but that'll be quick and easy. So I'm just going to carry on. Well, many moons later, I'm finally done welding, filling, and grinding. And as I said, you can see the crack. I'm not too worried about that. But now I'm going to clean it up by sweeping it. I got two products to use here. On the bottom side of the truck, I'm going to use this. This is from my local auto parts store. And I need to protect that metal from rusting again. So this stuff is pretty simple. You just kind of spray it on and let it dry, basically. And it's got a rubber element to it, so it's a lot more forgiving and kind of fills gaps and stuff. And then I just got some primer to put on top here. I am going to be doing something permanent with this bed in terms of bed liner, so I don't need to have a perfect solution. But I am going to sand it a little bit too before I put the primer on. So that's what's next. I'm just going to clean it up, put the primer on, and then put the undercoat on, and I'm done. Well, all wrapped up. That wasn't too bad. Maybe probably 5 or 6 hours all said and done. A lot of grinding. But anyway, got that wrapped up. We can get the bed liner done some other time and move on with our lives. Thanks for watching.